Hey guys, Andrew Darlington here with Veritas Insurance. I get the question a lot, what's the difference between additional insured and blanket additional insured? In a second, we're going to talk more about that so you'll understand what you get when you get those certificates. Okay, so what is additional insured and blanket additional insured? There's a lot of information that goes along that, and there's a bunch of different blogs that I have that kind of go in those each in a little more detail. But today we want to talk about additional insured and blanket additional insured and kind of what's the difference. Additional insured is when your name is on the actual policy. There'll be an endorsement on there, and there's a bunch of different additional insured endorsements depending on what you do. It can be for an architect, it can be for a contractor, it can be for a vendor. There's a lot of different things. It can be for if you're a tenant, there can be a lot of different things. So it's going to the form is going to be different than even their insurance companies kind of have their own. But bottom line, if you're an additional insured, you're going to be named somewhere on the policy. It's going to say additional insured and blah, 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 what type of additional insured. And then your name's going to be listed there. That means you're an additional insured. When you have that and you get proof of it, then you know you're protected. The only other thing you need to know is, well, what the exclusions are, but is that policy in force? And that's where the certificate is designed to tell you that on the day that it was printed, this policy is in force. So that's what you've got there. The blanket additional insured, again, there's a ton of different ones of those. That says, based on something that you've done, said, contracted, you are an additional insured. It can be, if you're a landlord, your tenant automatically would name you additional insured just because you're the landlord. You'd want that in the contract that they have to name you additional insured. But that happens a lot. A vendor, that can be because you're a vendor, you have a contract in place there. Usually the additional insured, the blanket additional insured, is because of some type of contract. Now, here's where it gets really tricky. Insurance companies, there's a standard form, and then a lot of insurance companies have their own different blanket additional insured form. Some are very broad. It can be a written agreement. It can say an agreement. It can say a written contract or written agreement. Those are the broader ones. Some of them say it has to be an insured contract. And then others go say it has to be an insured contract that was in force before the policy started and all these other things. So you need to look at that blanket additional insured endorsement. There's only about 2 paragraphs you need to pay a ton of attention to if you're trying to get away with like an email. Some do allow, if you email if you're a GC and you email the sub and say, hey, I want to be additional insured on that, and the sub emails back and says, sure, I'll get that done. That, with a lot of companies, Erie, a company we represent being one, that would be a written agreement. You have an agreement in writing. He asked for it. You agreed. That's a written agreement. Generally, you want a contract. If you're a GC, you want a subcontract agreement, and one of those line items in that subcontract says you will name us as an additional insured on your policy. And so that's that. There's different types of additional insured. There's ongoing operations, and then there's products and completed operations, and we talk about that in a different blog. But bottom line is, if you have some type of agreement or contract that say, hey, you're additional insured because of that, just make sure that that agreement that you have triggers the blanket additional insured endorsement to come into play, and then you're protected. Now, again, some say that you have to be solely not liable. You can't be liable at all for them to kick in, or their insured has to be 100%. A lot of different things can come into play when you get to what we call surplus lines companies. I tell folks that's generally the company you've never heard of. The ones that you hear of and you see the commercials on, they normally have a little bit broader form. But the ones you've never heard of, that's where it gets a little bit dicey. But if you have any questions, call us, 423-292-4142. We're happy to help. You can email us, help@veritasrm.com. Go to our website, veritasrm.com, hit the chat button, and we'll chat with you and help you out. You can comment on this video, wherever it may land, and we'll try to reach out to you as well there. We do help with home, auto, business, work comp, general liability, bonds, commercial auto, anything that ends in insurance, I like to say we can help with. So give us a shout. We'd love the opportunity to win your business. Until next time, thanks and God bless.